Welcome, everybody. Happy Self-Love Day. I really want to rebrand this from Happy Valentine's Day to Happy Self-Love Day because there are so many rules. Rules are bullshit rules. So many rules, perceptions, false beliefs about what this day should be. And David Cohen is a friend of mine, and David initiated this conversation. Hi, David.
Hey, good to be here, Diana.
And David said, let's have a conversation about this. Let's talk about self-love. Let's open up a conversation with all of you viewers and listeners so that we can feel good about where we are in whatever place you are in your life right now. So whether you're in partnership or not, let's make this about how can we come together in a community and have this conversation about what it means to be loving to oneself. And David, I'd love to just offer it up to you to start the conversation.
I will. And the reason I want to do this is I'm single, and there's people that are out there are single, and this is a tough day for them. They don't have that significant other in their life, and yet you can still practice self love and nurture your own soul and your own beingness, and still be okay. And I'm going to share a poem in just a sec, but I'll just share a funny story, okay, about self love. Years ago, and I've been single off and on pretty for a while. I find it hard to meet that certain someone. So I was working at that time in Whitby, and I think I was coaching or consulting all day, and it was a long day. It was Valentine's Day, and I debated, after work if I should go to Good Life Fitness, which I was a member of out in Pickering, on the way home, and I went, yeah, no, you know what, I should go, right? So I go, I have my workout, and I'm in the shower, and I know TMI, um, but I was in the steam room, and a guy pipes up and says, "Man, there's nobody here tonight. There goes the New Year's resolutions." And I went, "Dude, it's Valentine's Day. They're all out, romancing." And I said, "But we're here being kind to ourselves. So let's have a group hug." No, I said that, but I was joking. And anyway, so it was just sort of, yeah, if you don't have that significant other to go to dinner with or have a romantic dinner with or a movie or a play or whatever, at least take care of your own self. And that's the lesson that I want to share. And it was sort of a humorous moment. Just here are three single guys, after a workout, and he thought it was quiet because people gave up on their New Year's resolutions already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to own yoga studios, and Valentine's Day was always very quiet.
Hmm.
And yet, I always wanted to make sure that I had this space open for people who were not in partnership and didn't have someone to be with on that day, that they could be in community. Because I feel like our purpose is to really welcome all parts of ourselves, whether we're single or whether we're in couplehood, to welcome all parts of ourselves. And I'm single currently.
Hmm.
I'm here with my 14-year-old today, and we have a tradition. Our one of our fun traditions for Valentine's Day, which I've done for about, I don't know, 10 years or so, is we have a special dinner where we have dessert first. And whoever's here with us, they get to choose the dessert that they want, and I make it ahead of time or I buy it ahead of time. And so we have dessert first, and that's just like a little fun tradition that we have. And we don't have to have a partner to do something really kind to ourselves or with our family or with our children. Or if you're by yourself, it's totally okay for you to start your own tradition. And it's about what's going to make you feel really good, what's going to make your heart feel good.
Yeah. So can I maybe offer a poem to make our heart feel
Hmm.
good? Well, this is
Of
by
course.
Review, you and I were talking about. And it's a quick
Yeah.
poem. And he says, "I choose to love you in silence, for in silence I find no rejection. I choose to love you in loneliness, for in loneliness no one owns you but me. I choose to adore you from a distance, for distance will chill me from the pain. I choose to kiss you in the wind, for the wind is gentler than my lips. I
Mm,
choose to hold you in my dreams, for in my dreams you have no end."
that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
My my blog that I wrote for February, which is always about self-love, I started by adding a comment that I had been working with someone, and in one session, I said, "What's your takeaway from this session?" And she says that I can love myself. And so we had this little bit more conversation. What does that mean to love oneself? And another poem that I love from Rumi is, our task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek for all the barriers that we've placed against it. And I've rephrased that because I believe that we are born perfect, loving human beings. And our nature is love. Love is not an action, love is who we are. And yet, over the years, we have been layered and layered and layered with conditions and beliefs and imprints and habits that have taken us out of that truth. So here's my revised Rumi quote. And I've mentioned this a few times on different summits and talks this month. And I sort of asked for, forgiveness from Rumi, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I asked for forgiveness, but this is how I think it should go. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek for all the barriers that were placed against it. Because I don't think anyone ever woke up and said, I don't want to feel love today. And yet there are so many people who are not able to be in a state of self-love because they are in doubt, they are in judgment, they are in fear. They have all this stuck emotional energy inside them that blocks their access to their heart. And there's a story that in 1950s in Thailand, some monks were moving a statue of a Buddha, and it was like a big, heavy, heavy clay statue. And when they moved it, they discovered that there was a crack in the statue, and they got a chisel and a hammer, and they chiseled away at it. And what they found beneath it was this $240 million golden statue that had been covered with clay in the 1700s during a Burmese invasion. And they covered it with clay so that it wouldn't be stolen and people wouldn't see its worth. And what I've been teaching and speaking to and coaching about this month is that's all of us. We have all that clay on us, and yet our essence, our nature is the golden Buddha. It's our golden essence. And so your task is not to seek for love, but to seek for all the barriers that have been placed against you. It's having the recognition that we have this clay that's literally been slathered on us by people who didn't mean to, but their model of reality of the world at the time was such that they didn't know they were doing it because it's what they knew, and it becomes a generational pass on. And so we get a chance today to have this conversation to say, let's take off a layer or two. And the layer might be like, we take off stress, we take off tension, we take off shoulds, right? Why are we shoulding all over ourselves? We take off limiting beliefs, we take off all the not enoughs and the doubts, and recognize that we are all perfectly imperfect. Every single one of us. Our souls are perfection. And if we can remember to meet our souls, not even each other yet, but just our own souls every day and say, wow, what do you need today? We start moving towards more compassion, more kindness, more tenderness, and more self-love. So I'd love to ask you, David, what is it that you do? What are your self-love habits?
Well, I start the day with my morning rituals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's journaling, a gratitude journal. And then I do my affirmations. And then I meditate and I'll exercise. Lately, I've been doing my exercise later in the day. But, when the weather gets nicer and warmer, and I'll get out and go on my morning walk early. And it's so nice, So that's one bit of self-love. Today is a case in point. I reserved my Sundays for the house cleaning. And I know it seems like a bit of a chore. However, to me, when the house is clean, I'm clean, because I'm not only cleaning my space, but I'm cleaning my mind, and I let my mind sort of clean itself out. So, that's a bit of self-love. Exercise, eating healthy, reading, just nurture spirituality, just practicing my spirituality and having time in prayer and song and meditation, and just listening to really good music throughout the day really helps too. So yeah, I think just being loving to yourself and reaffirming that you're okay. Could we be better? For sure, but we're okay.
Yeah, we can be better, and yet can we be okay with where we are right now? And
Mm-hmm.
not just where we are, but what's going on in our lives. And I mean, let's just put it out there, like on a global level right now, like, can you be okay and loving to yourself, even in the middle of a global pandemic?
I know.
And
And
for me, there's been more time for my self-care, like similar to you. My first 2 to 3 hours of every morning is meditation, it's breath work, it's movement, and then it's learning. And then at some point throughout the day, I will repeat. I not necessarily that much time, but I will repeat because I believe that my spiritual practice doesn't just happen in the morning. I sprinkle it through the day. So I take time to do mindfulness and meditation throughout the day. And then what I've really brought into my practice as I've gotten really tuned into what my longings of my body is to be able to release tension, trauma, tightness, the kinks in my nervous system. I've learned to really listen to my body and move in a way that it longs to move. And it's sometimes it's fast and chaotic, and sometimes it's literally just like really slow, mindful movements, and getting intimate with the slowest movements so that I can come to a place where I can fully relax and let go. And to me, that's so critical for self-care. And I know many people do exercise. I mean, that's kind of, we all know how important that is. But I wonder how many people actually listen to their bodies to either change it up, skip it if their bodies are exhausted, right? Like not push themselves so hard, to be able to try something different, to be able to get into nature. One of the things I've been teaching people a lot lately is, people are saying they don't want to go outside. It's too cold. I mean, it's cold. We live in Canada. So let's just accept that and get over it. This is not going to change. So what I say to them is like Mother Nature never waits for you to be in a particular state to receive you. She is always welcoming you. And yet we somehow have decided that we will only welcome her and accept her if she's in a particular state, particular temperature or particular whatever, right? So I think it's just so important to get out there and move out of your comfort zone and get rid of the limiting beliefs and the excuses and all that stuff that keeps you inside in a state of contraction.
yeah, and even if you just go 10 minutes,
Yeah,
on a cold day,
yeah,
that's better than nothing. And you get a little fresh air. And Lord knows we need it right now with what's going on, right?
we sure do.
Um,
Yeah,
but,
and I mean vitamin D and all
yeah,
the chemicals, the good chemicals.
yeah,
Yeah,
endorphins. I remember
yeah,
back in the fall, it was, I think, I don't know, it was maybe a Friday. And I would just come off like a really full, heavy duty work week. And, and I went on a walk, and then I did a Facebook Live when I got back, and it's like sometimes you just have to push yourself, you know,
mm,
and even though that might seem harsh in terms of self love, the feeling after the completion of a walk was way better than sitting at home, kind of being tired and not doing it. So
yeah.
the feeling and the endorphins and the satisfaction of sometimes overcoming your own limits and barriers, as you alluded to, is really gratifying. Do you find
Yeah.
do you find that that's true for you, and when it comes to pushing through your own barriers of self love?
So I have um, I have a really strong understanding of the neuroscience and neuroanatomy. And
Hmm.
so I know that when I'm running stress, I cannot always trust in my decisions because stress will run cortisol through my system, and the cortisol will decrease my ability to access my genius part of my brain, my prefrontal cortex. It literally shuts it down. I call it like there's a portal that's open and then it's closed. So I don't always trust my decisions and judgment and what I need when I'm in stress. So that's why my Realign to Thrive protocol, which is my program and my protocol, is about bringing the body into a state of calmness before we can even ask it what it needs. So I guess my response is yes. And I'm always really cautious. Do I trust myself right now? Because I'm under stress. So what do I need to do first? I need to release the stress. And for me, releasing stress always like exercise, going outside, meditation, movement. Sometimes meditation isn't enough because the stress is trapped in my body and meditation doesn't release it. So I need to move it. I need to express it. I need to give it sound. And that helps to release it from the body. I think that meditation by itself as a stress releaser isn't the answer. I think it's part of it. And we need to recognize that we have trapped energy in our body that meditation won't necessarily release. It'll quiet the mind, but it doesn't release what's trapped in the body.
Right.
So I do believe that I often have to check in with myself. And because I have a very strong practice, it's part of what I do. Like, does this feel right? How does it feel in my body? What is the wisdom of my body telling me? Because I can't always trust my mind. And so many people live in the mind space, like right here. And I know because I did for 32 years, lived right here and denied the wisdom of my body. And so now I've learned the practice of tuning into my body and really listening to that gut sense. We are felt sense beings. What is my body trying to tell me? Um, so I think I answered your question. I'm not sure, but I know you have another question that I wanted us to have a chat about.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh, yes, yes.
yeah.
I just want to tap into or onto what you just said about releasing. And a gentleman I met years ago in my neighborhood took me to a tree one day in the area, and I'm in North York.
Hmm.
And he said, if you're angry with somebody, have it out on the tree. I'm going, what? This is like maybe 20 years ago. And he said, yeah, just yell at the tree. So, and I did. And then I hugged the tree and I said I loved it after. And I do this on my walks. Um, every time I do a walk, I go to a tree, I put my hands on it, and I breathe out the angst, the frustration, the hurt, the anger, the sadness, the loneliness right now with being locked in or locked on lockdown or whatever, locked in.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. And the
so
loneliness is the new epidemic.
that it is,
Yeah.
and just letting all that pain, frustration out, and I breathe it out. I put my hands on the tree and I breathe it out. And it's like I'm giving birth, which men we complain with a cold. I could just imagine what birth is like. Uh,
No comment.
yeah. So I let it on the tree, and then I hug the tree. I thank it, and I bless it, and I say I love you. And it's just such a nice feeling, and it gets rid of that uh, that energy that's inside. That, you're right, meditation and sometimes just doesn't do it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going on to Facebook because somebody was saying that it's not showing live. So I'm just having a quick look. To me, it looks like it's going,
Yeah.
and I think it's continuing to go. So if anyone's not able to get on while this is going live, then the replay will be there. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to watch it.
So you want that question? Okay, so this
Yeah.
is something that's coming up, right?
Mhm.
How do you love somebody when we have opposing views? Is that the question? So especially in this day and age, where some people are for this. I won't say what, but and some people are no way, I'm against it, or I don't believe this, or I don't believe that. So how do you love somebody
Hmm.
when you have opposing views and
Hmm.
you're very diametrically opposed?
That's an amazing question. So here's my belief. I really strongly believe, and this takes everything from my spiritual practice to believe this, because on an embodied level, hi Suzanne, on an embodied level, there are some things that are incomprehensible. There are some things that we cannot say that's okay. On a human level, there are some things that are just not okay. But I really believe that on a soul level, we are all essentially good. We are all born with our golden hearts. We are all the Buddha in our golden nature. But some people have more clay than others. And their clay, coupled with the stress that they're running in their nervous system, prevents them from being able to maybe see the bigger picture of a situation. My job isn't to make them wrong. My job is to be really clear about what my beliefs are. And then I always say, I believe that everybody is doing the best they can given their model of reality of the world right now. It doesn't mean on a human level that it's okay, but it's all they know. And so there's a sense of forgiveness and compassion. And I know in history and even today, there's stuff that's happening that we cannot ever say is okay. I don't ever want to give that message that on a human level, any of this is okay. But Wayne Dyer wrote let me just think for a second, not Wayne Dyer. Neil Donald Walsh wrote a
Mhm.
book called The Soul and the Sun, I think is the title of it.
Yeah, this
And
must have been
I,
after conversations.
yeah, and I love that story. The essence of that story is that I'll give the quick synopsis that there are two souls that are having or there's a soul having a conversation with God saying, I want to come and experience life as the person who forgives. I want to experience the quality of forgiveness in my next lifetime. And God saying, well, but there's no one to forgive. So his friend, the kind little soul, shows up and says, oh, I'll come down. I'll give you something to forgive. I'll be your experience down there of forgiveness. And he says, you would do that for me? And he says, why? He says, well, because you've done it for me many eons as well. And then the little soul that said, I will come down and be the one that you need to forgive, says, the only problem is the moment that I strike you and give you something that you need to forgive, it's going to be really important that you forgive me, because I will have forgotten who I am. I'm going to need you to remember who I am, because I will have forgotten. And that story, I tell that story every time I run a new teacher training program. That's one of the stories that I share. And it becomes an opportunity for us to see through the lens of the soul and the lens of love, instead of the lens of human judgment. And I know that that's a really hard sell for a lot of people. If you're suffering, if you're in trauma, in drama, life isn't going the way you want to. But my perspective, my evolution of my soul and my humanness is that that's the only way that I want to show up in the world. And because of it, I'm going to be given opportunities to practice this that I'm not going to want to experience. But I trust in the wisdom of the universe to give me what I have the capacity to manage, because I'm on this journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You mentioned,
and then I take a big exhale, because like there's fear around that, right?
Yeah.
Fear around that.
You mentioned forgiveness. What does that look like when you're being not only forgiving of somebody else, but it's also forgiving for self-love, but also forgiving and maybe letting go with love?
Yeah.
That's
So I
it's a
believe,
bit of a murky area, because I don't think a lot, we fully understand what does forgiveness mean.
well, first of all, forgiveness is a personal love practice.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is absolutely a self-love practice. Forgiveness never releases the charge from the other person, especially if it's something that was so damaging and hurtful and incomprehensible. It's not about releasing them from what they did or excusing what they did or making it okay, but it's letting it go from your own heart, because forgiveness is one of those layers of clay that prevents your golden heart from showing up.
Yeah.
Right? So
I
forgiveness is a self-practice.
All right. So I saw an interview this week on TV,
Mm-hmm.
a show I like to watch, and this woman's father at 60 was hit by a drunk driver, also 60. And the driver never admitted remorse. He was protecting himself
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole period. But this woman said, there's a higher purpose for my life. And she did come to a place of forgiveness, not forgetting, forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And she's gone on now to talk about it in with other people who have done similar sort of acts. And what happened was, she said, I've forgiven. And she spoke to a group of women who have, maybe been found guilty of drunk driving. And they were so happy with this message, because somebody actually could forgive them, so they could begin to forgive themselves. And that was the story. Really
Do you,
beautiful.
do you know the story about, I was just Googling her name so I can say it correctly, Immaculée Libagiza from
No,
Rwanda?
no.
So she's an author now. She's written this book and she's spoken about it, about the genocide that happened in Rwanda in
Mm-hmm.
2006, the Holocaust. And
Mm-hmm.
she, the way that I heard it, I've had the privilege of hearing Wayne Dyer speak a few times. And so he spoke about Immaculée because he was at a cocktail party and he got to meet her. And he said, when he found out she was from Rwanda, this was in the late, maybe 2009, 2008, he found out she was from Rwanda. He said, oh, I've just seen this movie about Rwanda. Do you know about that? What happened? And she says, well, let me tell you my story. And so he encouraged her to write this book. And the story is that she was away at school and came back for the Easter weekend and was visiting her family. And At some point in the middle of the night, her brother came running into the family home and said, "There's been a coup. We have to get out of here now. They're going to kill us all." And the dad said, "No, that won't happen. These are our friends. They're our community. That won't happen." And so they went back to sleep, and around 6 or 7 in the morning, her dad woke her up. So she was a young lady, 19, 20. Her dad woke her up and said, "You need to go now. You're going to go next door. Next door is where the priest lives, who was part of the, I can't remember the tribe that was doing the killings. I can't remember right now what they were called, but he was part of that tribe, but he was a priest. So he was not going to be hurting anybody. And he agreed to shelter, I believe it was 5 to 10 women. And he hid them in his bathroom. His bathroom was 4 by 4. And because he was a priest in the community, he had 2 bathrooms in his home. Most people only had 1. This is significant because his family didn't even know that he was harboring them in his home. He hid them in there, and they stayed in there. It was a 4 foot by 3 feet bathroom, and they were in there for 91 days, 7 women. They were only allowed to flush the toilet when the other toilet in the home flushed, so that his family wouldn't know, because that would put his family at risk. Twice, the group that had done the killings came looking specifically for her because they knew she had been visiting her family, and they had killed her family, and she heard her family getting killed from inside the bathroom. And she said she sat there. There were 2 very near situations where they almost opened the bathroom door and found her, and then somehow they got distracted, and so these women didn't get discovered. And she talks about how every day for the first 60 days, she did the prayer, Our Father. I grew up in a Catholic church, so I remember this. She would go to this point. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And that's where she'd stop. Because the next sentence is, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespassed against us. And she was so angry, of course. She couldn't do it. But then she talks about how there was a day where she did this and she was ready to stop because she was not wanting to go to forgiveness. And she said she just got overwhelmed with a light of compassion and love and tenderness and forgiveness. And so she said the rest of the prayer, and she continued to say it. And when she ended up being able to be released, to get out of there, and saw the devastation and saw her family, her younger siblings killed on their front lawn, she kept this forgiveness inside her. And she even went and visited so the people were charged, they were jailed. She went and visited the man who she knows was responsible for her parents. He was her teacher, her school teacher. This was a community, right? That was, so, again, everybody's doing the best they can given their model of reality of the world. They had this model of reality that there needed to be a division, and that division fueled everything they had. On a human level, incomprehensible, but on a soul level, immaculately understood. That forgiveness was a loving choice that she made for herself. This was about releasing the tension and the clay, the layers on her heart, because without that, she would always walk through the world with a hardened heart.
Yeah.
But on a human level, how do we digest that, right? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know. I've had lots of trauma in my life, but nothing quite like that.
No. And that was devastating. I remember Romeo Dallaire, Canada's general, who was over there, and he came back, with major PTSD and other issues.
Yeah.
And spoke about it after, totally devastated. It's like, can we ask Suzanne, who's also quite brilliant and tapped in as well, what her take is on self-love and how she practices self-love, and then also what her take is on forgiveness. Suzanne,
just unmute yourself, Suzanne.
Yes, I'm doing that. Sorry about that. Also, my delay coming in, and I was just talking to my son. He is actually he is doing. One moment, please, first.
Ein Spicy Crispy und eine. Was war die letzte?
Die andere war einfach nur crispy, ohne spicy. Ja, eine California Roll.
Oh,
Ja,
California.
gut.
Das ist
So,
alles? Du bist schon
ja.
3?
Ja, das ist das. Und die
So maybe while we're waiting, I just
Yeah,
want to,
yeah,
I'd love to read a poem. It was something that
yeah.
I read this morning in my yoga class.
Hmm.
And
Crispy
what,
roll speaks of self-love too, though.
you know what? Delicious food, nurturing food, that's self-love, right? That's self-care and preparing it lovingly. So good.
Mhm.
But I'm also really okay with other people preparing my food. If anybody wants to deliver, I'm so okay with that. There's this beautiful poem that I read. It says, "Today I asked my body what she needed, which is a big deal. Considering my journey of not really asking that much, I thought she might need more water, more protein, more greens, more yoga, more supplements, more movement. But as I stood in the shower reflecting on her stretch marks, her roundedness where I would like flatness, her softness where I would like firmness, all those conditioned wishes, that form of bundle of never quite rightness, she whispered very gently, 'Can you just love me like this?' And we have so many influences that impact how we love ourselves or don't love ourselves. And my hope is that we're going to do a little meditation in a few moments, that we can get to a point where we can see that we are enough. And our imperfections, you know, when you purchase a fabric that has tie-dye and it has the disclaimer, the imperfections in here are part of the quality and the beauty of the fabric.
Mhm.
That's every one of us. We have imperfections. We have our flaws. We have our stories, our narratives. And yet, can we let that be part of the beauty of who we are? And when I coach, particularly women, it's about how do you bring your unique quality into your world, into your work? Because we don't need a variation of me, a variation of you, David, a variation of Suzanne. We need whoever is listening to this, you uniquely represented as the universe embodied, as the God representation that you are, and your stories and your feelings and your beliefs are so critical. But we run these judgments that everybody has to look the same and say the same thing and be the same and think the same. Remember, we all have different beliefs and different experiences, and that leads us to our model of the reality of the world. And if we can meet that with compassion, right, and say, wow, like they just don't know because they're so wound up, they're so tight, they're so restricted in their hearts and their bodies. They're running so much stress, they can't see another way. There's no creativity, there's no access to creativity. Right? So Suzanne, we'd love to hear what is your take on self-love and self-care?
Well, I think that's something which is very important, because when you want to give out love, you have to have first by yourself a full cup. Otherwise, there's nothing what you can give. Yes. But I also think that a lot of people struggle with that because we are so special when you be in a nurturing role. The females, quite often, you are so trained from young on to be the nurturer, to take care, so that you do that all around. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of males like that too, who are caretakers, etc., that you are forgetting about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think which leads up that you are actually living belief systems which not really be maybe even your belief system.
Absolutely.
It's
So agree.
you are not, yeah. And so being yourself and becoming authentic, that is a part where you actually live you and not somebody else.
Yeah. And the pathway to authenticity is to start to uncover those layers of conditioned clay and beliefs and the shutdowns, to reveal and to be able to touch the truth of who you are. And that touching that truth can be painful sometimes.
It is, it's leaving you behind to actually recover or discover you. You know what I mean?
leave behind the conditioned beliefs about
Yes.
who you are to become really fully who you are, right?
You have to let yourself in the past and rediscover yourself again. Yeah.
Wow. You know, I just saw that. I got that message um, in a spiritual service I was watching online, and that's exactly what you're saying. It's like
Mhm.
we're being molded right now, and you know, and my niece actually said, "Man, it's so tough," you know, right now, and I said, "Yeah, but we're being molded. You know, coal does not become coal unless it goes under intense heat and transformation, and then it becomes a diamond." And we're all being
Yes.
molded.
But you know,
Yes.
we are molded from little on, like culture. Like everybody has a different type of culture which he's bringing with him. It's like there can be some things which is my culture very polite for,
Mm-hmm.
to other ones, which other cultures would think, oh my God, she's rude. You know?
Yes.
So it's like a cult almost. So we are constantly having something which is coming from the outside since we are opening up our eyes, right?
We're constantly influenced, and it's not just from society, it's our parents, it's their parents, it's their parents, because generationally we pass down traumas and we pass down tension and we pass down habits and beliefs. And so there comes a time where we get to have this conversation and say, no, my self-care is essential for me to be a care provider in my home, in my community, right? It becomes, for me, it's a non-negotiable. And you know, my family just grew up knowing that this is a non-negotiable. And for anybody who says I don't have time, my challenge to you is I want you to add up how much time you spend on social media, which is again letting outer influences determine who you are and what you believe. Slow down the amount of time that you're watching news. And absolutely non-negotiable for me is the news doesn't come on first thing in the morning. I don't listen to the news. That your nervous system, the entire sponge of your being, is the most penetrable first thing in the morning, in the first 20 minutes when your brain waves are really slow and responsive. So whatever you take in that first 20 to 30 minutes sets the tone for your day. And the research has found that when you watch news at 8 o'clock in the morning, the people who watched news at 8 o'clock in the morning versus a group that didn't, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had elevated levels of cortisol, stress hormones in their body. So we have choices. We have choices every day. And I have something called the ABCs. A is awareness. We have to be aware that we need to make a change. We have to be aware that we have choices. The B is take a breath, because breathe and everything changes. Eckhart Tolle says one breath is an entire meditation. And then the 3 C's are make a choice to take a chance to create a change. That means something as simple as not watching the news in the morning is self-care, is self-love, because you're reducing the amount of stress hormones in your body. You're going to feel better. Less stress hormones, more feel-good hormones, the ones that are going to make you feel engaged, grateful, excited about life, less pain in your bodies. So it becomes so important to recognize what are the habits that you're doing. Why are you doing them? Are you doing them just because you've always done them?
Yes,
Time
and
to
that's
make a
also,
change.
I personally think as well, that's also very important, the awareness, what you look for. Like, what do you pay attention for? So are you the sarcastic type? Are you the one who's looking for pessimism and is a different form of negativity?
Yeah.
Or are you looking actually for things which are beneficial for you, right?
Yeah.
So you always have a choice. Your C's coming in again, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Where attention goes, energy grows.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you're focusing on the negativity, and I mean, there's a lot of it today. I don't want to diminish it. On a human level, what's happening in the world today is an assault to our essential sense of safety and security. I
Yeah.
totally get that. And because I work with chakras, the root chakra, the base chakra is absolutely in fight or flight right now. I get that. That's why it's even more critical to make these choices to take care of yourself. So turn off the news, turn off social media. I use social media to post, and I get in trouble by my kids sometimes because they say you post so much for your business, but you don't reciprocate, because I don't scroll ever, ever. It's just not something I choose to engage in. And if I happen to get lost in it for like 30 seconds, I catch myself and I shut down, turn off social media. And at least if you're going to do it consciously.
That's
Consciously
right.
meaning I'm going to spend 15 minutes. And that's it. Put a timer on it and turn it off, because hours later, you have just taken yourself down a rabbit hole of everybody else's beliefs and life at the expense of your own truth. Right?
Yeah.
And you also didn't actually spend your time in something which would be beneficial for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a waste of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So people who say they don't have time for self-care, it's like, look at how much time you're on social media, look at how much time you're watching the news, look at how much time you're watching like Netflix or whatever other platform you're on, and you probably can increase the time of self-care. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Well, we talked before we went live about this article that I wrote in Home Business Magazine, and in my role as a business coach, I believe in this stuff. I think it's essential for our success.
Mm-hmm.
And I did an acronym I wrote about self love in the February edition of Home Business Magazine. And the F is focus on a plan to get off social media or let go of time wasters. And even the experts like the late Dr. Stephen Covey or Brian Tracy or who is he's a leadership coach, I forget his name. Anyway, so my advice was maybe even if you really need to be on social media, maybe just limit your time to 2 or 3 20-minute sessions a day, and then that's that, right? No more.
Because then you're doing it consciously instead of getting sucked into the unconscious vortex of it.
Right.
You do it consciously, and the more you can do it consciously, the more you start to wake up in the world around you. And that's essentially what we need. We need people to wake up today.
Yeah.
We need people to wake up to their own loving hearts with kindness. That's how we start to transform the world, is by transforming our own essential loving nature to see what's really true for us.
Yeah. In one of my workshops, I share the story of the bricklayer, talking about where we focus our attention. And this guy comes onto a construction site, and he sees the builder's building, and he comes up to the one construction worker and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he grumbles. He goes, "I'm laying bricks." Not too happy. So he goes up to the other bricklayer, and the other bricklayer, he says, "Hey, you're laying bricks." And the other bricklayer takes him by puts his arm around him, and he says, "No, look up to the sky." And he says, "I'm not just laying bricks. I'm building a cathedral."
Mm.
And I share that in a marketing context in terms of what are you building? What's the vision you're building for yourself?
Yeah.
And maybe we need to get present to that moving forward. What are we building in community? What are we building within? What are we building in our homes? What are we building in our neighborhoods? What are we building in our country? Are we building cathedrals, so to speak?
And I love the concept of let's get present to it. Let's bring loving presence. Let's bring loving presence to ourselves and whatever is inside us that needs to heal. I spent 4 months healing immense grief this summer. And instead of, I'm speaking at little plug here for Speaker Slam on Wednesday night. It's a speaking competition, and I'm going to be speaking about this, about how I healed, at least for now, because I believe healing is a lifelong journey. And someone yesterday, I heard them say, it's not a healing journey, it's a human journey, right? It's a human journey. And there's parts of it that, call more attention than others at different times. So I'm speaking to how I used my loving presence to heal instead of numbing out, distracting, moving away from it, or judging it. I went like into my pain and I sat with it. And I literally said, like, oh my gosh, loving present grief, what do you need? And what if we did that with ourselves every day? What do you need? And I'd love to can I take us on a meditation, David?
Yeah. Can I just touch base with Suzanne one more time?
Yeah.
I met Suzanne at Mo Mondays, which is like Speaker Slam.
Yeah.
And Suzanne, your talk was on healing your own pain. Do you want to just share real quick what you uncovered in that time? That was a brilliant talk, and I went up to Suzanne and went, "Oh my God, that really inspired me." So do you want to just you got maybe a minute or two just to share? Are you okay? You just have to unmute. No, you unmute yourself.
Can't hear you.
I love Zoom. Oh, there she is. Now she's getting it.
I'm unmuted. Good. Yes. Well, I was literally telling my own story. And I believe also when you tell your own story, you're authentic. You're coming from that, what is your belief system,
Yeah.
and you share it.
Yeah.
And so I would be literally talking about how your own attitude towards your thoughts is influencing your well-being. So I was telling them my stories. So like I had over 20, 23 surgeries. So I've been burned third degree, 40% of my body. I've been run over from a car with 70 kilometers an hour from the sidewalk. I had thyroid cancer. I had several tummy surgeries. The first one when I was 2 days old. And so I noticed something always when I was on the way as well, that again, I was in a lot of areas where I was dealing with people who are healing. Your attitude is the one who heals you or not, right? And you are the one who are decided if you're getting better or not. So I was talking then as well about that you have to take responsibility to that what has happened to you. And I think it's not done against you, it's done for you. So I created that the challenge which was happening was actually something which helped me to grow. So, and I would grow out of it, I would become even more, and I could see my strengths with that as well. And that was something which would send me out to talk with people about it. And I also actually starting now to include grief as well. Like I lost my mom about 7 months ago, and I was with her. So she died in my arm. So I literally rented a bed in a hospital and moved inside with her. And what I notice is that I think that human get stolen two very important parts in the circle of life, birth and death, because institution taken it over. So I learned so many things, even it was hard and it really hurt as well. But I learned so many things about dying, about importance as well, that you not only have to tell other ones that you love them, but also have to tell them what you love, to give comfort on the end. I want to do things where you change that as well, that people are able to die at home, maybe with the help of nurses, if possible, in a different way. So it's like, I was in the hospital, I hear people calling for their relatives who died the same night, and nobody was coming there. Yeah. So it's not that the nurses didn't done anything wrong, they done great jobs, but it's different. Yeah. And this has to change. Yeah. And so what I want to change is simply going out there and talk about that people have to get a different understanding towards when things happen towards you, not the victim role, but seeing how you can put that actually towards growing for you. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally resonate with that. There's so many things there that I'd love to have more time to unzip, but one of them is around our society's relationship to grief, that we're supposed to get over grief so quickly, and it's this linear path of healing, and it's like grief is messy, grief takes time. And the other thing that I know is grief is a temple energy, that when we can turn towards it and allow it to move through us, it takes us into a place of beautiful surrender and acknowledgement and acceptance and appreciation of life. So I would love to see more conversations around grief. I'd love to see more conversations around how we can support people in their transition. My own father died within COVID, and he was alone, and we couldn't be with him. And I just had so much grief around that. The fact that he was gone, but the fact that he went by himself because we couldn't be there. So I love the idea of having that conversation. And then I love the other part that you mentioned. Reverend Michael Beckwith talks about 4 stages of consciousness, and the first one being the victim stage, life is happening to me. And I've been a communication expert for 30 years, and I teach conscious communication. And there's so much around how we choose, the words we choose, that have a massive impact, powerful and unconscious, on the way that we believe we are in, like, life is happening around us. So the victim stage, it's poor me, it's why is this happening to me? There's so much communication around that. The next stage is the for me stage, which is life is happening for me. And that's the stage of what we call manifestation. And there's beauty in that. Absolutely. It's seeing the gifts and seeing the potentials and seeing how everything is happening for the evolution of my soul. And then he moves into stage 3 consciousness, which he talks about life is happening through me. And I feel like right now, most of the people are still in phase 1. There's a big group of people in personal development specifically that are in phase 2. And I feel like this is where personal development gets stuck, because phase 3 is where we can really put our hands up and surrender and say, universe, show me the way. It's no longer under my control. I will show up. I will show up to the longings that you present to me. And we do the work. It's not like a lay back and do nothing. We still do the work. And so I would love, part of what I do when I coach women is I try to help them move to that phase 3, because there's a lot of people that do phase 2 manifestation stage. I don't need to oversaturate that. But the phase 3 part about life is happening through me, how do we get to that point? How do we take our experiences and start to transform them in the field of our awareness and our hearts to truly be able to embody this concept of life is happening through me? To be continued, different conversation.
I'll keep you in touch.
But it's for you life as well, right?
Well, the for you is phase 2, and through you is phase 3. So it's a little bit more of a, there's a more, it requires a little bit more spiritual transformation. So it is for you in stage 3, and then it's also through you. So it's an amazing conversation. It's a very deep conversation.
I can hear that. Oh, well, better not start.
We'll go on all day, and we want
could
to
go on all day, but it's so nice that we got to get outside.
And
but
I have to apologize as well too before, like friends was coming by. I'm right now as well, Dave, I just discovered that I have another cancer again. So, but in my mind, and that's also a state, I see myself already, that's done. I'm talking on stage about it. So it's passing, but don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm living in denial or try to put it away. So I'm dealing different with that, because I saw what you are able to do and what your belief system as well and how you deal with that. So I had my cry day as well, my bullseye out day and everything like that, right? And I also had my day where I really dived into information to find everything out about it, right? And then I was looking my internal day to see how do you feel with that, and then my surrounding as well. My breakthrough was that I the first time allowed to share it, like I'm doing it now here with you, because I'm the type of woman before was I can do it by myself. I don't need help. You know, that thing. So that was another. So I see that type of cancer right now teaching exactly that to me, to allow that.
So you are definitely talking about life is happening through you.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
she's beautiful.
She's a pretty magical woman. I don't think we'd be friends if she wasn't.
Amazing. Let's go. Let's take a little meditation time together. I'm going to invite you to.
Great. And just for those watching later, just really be kind to yourself right now. That's sort of.
Yeah. And know that everybody's doing the best they can given their model of reality, and we never know what their struggles are. And I think if you can be kind to yourself, it will increase your kindness to others.
Yeah.
And you know what? It feels good when you give kindness out, it comes back.
Of course.
It feels really good. So do that more often.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and close your eyes? I'm going to put on some music. And as you close your eyes, whatever's touching the ground, whether you're seated and it's your tailbone, or if your feet are on the ground, feel whatever's touching the ground rooted. So we are in a state right now where first chakra, root chakra, our sense of safety and survival is under assault with what's going on in the world right now. And yet if we ground ourselves and we breathe into that space of the feet into the earth or the tailbone into the ground, we can come back to this moment, and in this moment, you are safe. You are here. And then the program that I do is called Realign to Thrive, and the real in Realign is where we start. And the real is REAL. The R in real is starting with the remembrance. R for remembrance, remembering that your essential nature is that you are the Golden Buddha. The way we started this conversation about the Golden Buddha recovered and discovered, revealed, in its essence, having been hidden for 200 years. We don't have 200 years. Would you be willing to place your hand on your heart right now and feel that beneath this hand lies your Golden Buddha nature, your essential goodness. And remember that you are a miracle. Depending on the statistics, there's a 1 in, sometimes people say 20 billion, 40 billion, 400 billion chances that you are here. Essentially, that's a zero, statistically 0% chance. And you're here. And some of you have gone through some massive stepping stones to be here. If you're in phase 1 consciousness, there are obstacles. If you're in stage 2, you know that you get to step over them and they take you to a higher ascension of your truth, your purpose, and your love. Take a breath and feel into this place beneath your hands in your heart center. And allow yourself to be willing to maybe dive into it and see this golden light that is inside your heart. That no matter what was done to you or what you did, that light is always there. You just might have forgotten. So here's your chance to remember. R for remember. And then the work I do is embodied mindfulness and embodied consciousness. So I'd love for you to now, with the E, is start to explore where in your body you're being called to. So with maybe keeping one hand on your heart, is there another place in your body that your attention is being brought to? Maybe it's feeling tightness or openness, tingling, swirling, butterflies, heat, coolness. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, allow yourself to go there. When we can land in the body, we can start to unwind our nervous system. And when we unwind our nervous system, we come back to our essential loving nature. And we remember who we are, and we remember who we are to each other. So begin to explore where your body is calling you. This takes you out of your mind space and into your body. The wisdom of your body. And the A in real is to allow that to be. Let it be. L, let it be. Allow and let it be without needing to judge it. If you need to have some conversation with it, let it be curiosity. Like, that's interesting. I didn't realize that I had this little tension in my low back. But you don't have to change it. You don't have to transform it. Bringing it your loving attention. And then over time, we bring that loving presence into our body when we're feeling tense, contracted, in judgment, in conflict. So we start to love, literally love the shit out of ourselves with full loving presence. And take a few breaths. And the IGN in realign, once you come into your body and find this state of loving awareness. The I is for, you can ask yourself, what do I need to know right now? And trust the I, inspired wisdom, inspired or intuitive pop-up that comes to you. What do you need to remember or know right now? In this moment. Not in an hour from now, but right here, right now. What do you need to remember? And the G stands for gratitude. What are you grateful for in this moment? And maybe we can guide it towards, as you move into this loving, all loving, knowing essence of your natural state of being. What are you grateful for? And the N in realign stands for need. What do you need? What do you need to keep your heart open to your own loving presence. Maybe it's some of the things we talked about today around self-care, because self-care is self-love. Maybe it's something that you need to do right now. Maybe stay in this space. Feel your breath. Ask for support. So many people don't even know what they need, and I'm giving you permission right now. What do you need? Do you need to feel your love for yourself and to allow others to love you? Draw in a deep breath. Exhale, sigh. I'll do that a few times with an audible exhalation. The sigh tones the vagus nerve, which is directly related to parasympathetic nervous system response. That's your calming nervous system. So I'm going to have you do that again. Deep breath in through your nose. Exhale, sigh. And then part of this practice is rinse and repeat. We go back to the art of remembering. We won't do it together as a group, but know that you can replay this anytime and make it part of your self-care practice. And take a final breath in. And take your time to open your eyes. There's a woman who I had the privilege of co-authoring my book with, Ignite Female Changemakers book. She wrote the foreword. Her name is Andrea Sush. She's an actress. She is a psychotherapist. She is an author. She's an amazing person. And she was on a talk that I was participating in last week. And she told us about how she had been to a TED talk, and there was a famous actor on the stage. And she couldn't remember who it was because it doesn't really matter. But someone asked him a really important question. They said to him, "Why does everybody love you?" And his response, "Because I let them." And that being able to let others love you starts with your own acknowledgement of self-love. Over to you, David.
Yeah, I just had I sent a message to some friends today wishing them happy Valentine's Day, and one response was right back at you, and I thought, no, you got to take that in.
Yeah, receive. Yes.
And then right back at me, because I'll take that in. But yeah, receive. You're worthy. You know, one thing I'll just kind of share this. This is another conversation that I've been feeling and wrestling with for a few months during this pandemic, because I do have a little time to think about these things, not a lot, mind you. And that is, I've been really desiring to feel God's love. And what would that be like? And it does start with us.
It sure does.
Or a finger of God, or a spark.
Yeah.
But boy, that to feel that amount of love would be amazing.
It's in you.
I think we're on the verge globally.
Yeah, I really think there's a lot of people that are doing this really deep transformational and revelational. Let's say revelational and transformational, because we have to reveal it to ourselves before we can transform it into the world.
Yeah. So from a guy, for the guys out there, it's cool to practice self-love.
It's essential. Guys, we need you to do this. Us women, we count on you. We need you to be in that place to give us permission to do the work ourselves.
Yeah.
And we all have masculine and feminine energy. We all need to find balance in that. And there's a lot of toxicity running through the world right now around masculine and feminine energy. When you come back into self-love, we bring balance into it.
Yeah. And we need to also tap into our inner kid. You know, we forgot that. We forgot
Oh,
we forgot.
that's a massive, that's when I say healing. And the comment I heard yesterday was it's not a healing journey, it's a human journey. It's about going back. And that's a lot of the work I do, because a lot of work I do is around shadows, the disowned parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we've deemed unlovable. How do we bring them back home and integrate them? And that's a beautiful journey.
So we'll do
Another
that.
conversation.
We'll do that in another. And
Yeah.
Suzanne, any last comment? Do you feel better? Oh, you're on mute again. You're on mute. Unmute yourself. Okay, Suzanne doesn't do Zoom calls.
Yes, I actually do, but we have not that muting stuff constantly happening, right? So
Okay.
because it's like a communication more or less, right? So, but I don't do that often on my laptop here, so that's new. But I have to admit, everywhere it's different. Like on my phone, it's different again. And then my disturbance, my son was coming in because for Valentine's Day, he said, "Mom, you don't cook. I'm gonna order sushi. What sushi do you want?" So he was getting the order in that moment.
So that we were joking, Diana and I said that's those crispy whatevers you're getting, practicing self-love.
Suzanne, any final comments about self-love? 1 or 2 words to share with people? What does self-love mean? Can you summarize it in 1 or 2 words? Self-love is?
Self-love is being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
David? Self-love
You're
is?
enough.
Yes, you are enough. Good. David, self-love is?
Yeah, just being really good to yourself.
Yeah.
Making yourself a priority so you can give to others.
Ditto. Ditto. Yeah. And forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself and letting go of the comparisons and the perfectionisms and all those things that don't serve you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Suzanne, for coming on.
Happy
Valentine's Day to you all
and
as
really
well.
Nice to meet you. Wow.
Nice to meet you too, Suzanne. Lovely to meet you. I'd love to hear more about your story when the time's right. And I wish you well in healing in your journey.
Thank you. And you will. And I will have other people to heal as well. Yeah. That is my mission in life. I know that.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. Thank you for initiating this. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. Go on outside now. Enjoy the sunshine.
I'm going now.
And
I did it already. I was 2-hour walk. Ha.
Yeah. Amazing.
I'm going now. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. And happy Valentine.
Thank you so much. So I've stopped the live stream, David, and I'm just going to stop the recording.
And now.